Hey, what is going on, everybody? Guess what time it is? It is Friday. It is another episode of Millennial with Billy and Mel. Hopefully, you guys are doing good so far. Hopefully, you've had a great week. It's a little dreary outside, but that's fine. We're going to still be here yelling today. And so what we're going to be talking about is what millennials, millennials.
Yells. We're yelling.
We are going to yell about it, but what millennials value in the workplace. And, not only is this just for us to tell you, maybe that's something that you're struggling with as a millennial, right? And you might be asking yourself, why am I struggling in my workplace? But also for those that are going to be watching that might employ some millennials, right? Maybe there's some things that you could change in your workplace to keep those employees, right? And so, but before we get on into all that, guys, make sure you're commenting who you are, where you're from. We'd love to give you a shout out, right? And if you're going to be jumping on the replay, or if you're going to be listening to this on one of the many areas that you can listen to us, iTunes, Spotify, there's a bunch of places now. We're all over the place, so we're taking over.
Yeah.
So, but obviously you can check us out there if you can't make the live show. But guys, anyways, we do appreciate you guys. So Mel, tell us what is going on since the last time we chatted. How are you doing?
It feels like we blink and it's Friday again. Maybe I'm just so excited, but yeah, I'm good. And the weather, I think we do need the rain. I was telling someone the other day that I feel like I'm like the hashtag adulting, which is a millennial term, which, obviously some people think is hilarious, but that when I say that it's raining and we really need the rain, it's because I have so many plants outside and now I have a garden and I actually water it every day. So to hear that it's raining, I used to say the adults when I was younger, oh, we really need this rain. I'm like, no, we don't. No one likes the rain. And now that I have all these plants, right? But no, it's good because I can spend less time out there. But yeah, everything's good. I just opened my email right before we got on. I got accepted to Leadership Harrisburg Series, so super cool. We're going to talk about that. We'll be yelling through that. I'm really excited. And I also, another thing I woke up to as a follow-up from last week, we talked about social media and some of the things that were getting us yelling about it. And I saw something this morning in a group that I am in, and I didn't like it. It was a bad comment. It was racist, and I saw what was going on back and forth. Some of the people were commenting and speeding with this woman, and we talked about last time about don't engage, right? Obviously, fueling the fire of some people, and I didn't want to get into it. I didn't want to start my day off this way, but I finally just said, look, this is not acceptable in this group. And I said, or any group, really, honestly, obviously, anywhere. And I tagged the admins and I said, you should remove yourself from this page or be removed. And I just thought, I know, I was just like aggressive, right? I say, am I the Karen or the anti-COVID Karen here? But listen, we talked about it last week, and I just think about shutting people down. People are going to do what they're allowed to do, right? And I think that because everyone was going back and forth, it creates the drama. It creates all that stuff that we said not to do. And it was just a great example, I thought, to share, because when I said this is not acceptable, boom, 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 I got an apology. I literally said, have a blessed day. I won't do it again. And she, same thing to a couple other people, and it stopped. And I just thought, hey, here's a great example to say, follow up, shut it down on social media. Did I have to do it? No, but I felt somewhat encouraged to do that. So it ended on a positive note
that's good. I think we need to do, and not to get too much into it, but yeah, I think that's more of what we need to do is that, obviously people are entitled to their opinions, but when it's racially charged or negative, or just downright crushing somebody else or something like that, I think it needs to be shut down. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm glad you did. So.
Yeah, and I think it's a great thing too today, because as we're talking about millennials in the workplace and what we value and what we don't, or what sets us off, I think it's a great example. Even it's not it's not appropriate for anywhere. This, whether it's negativity or the drama. One example of things that we don't like to see in the workplace too. So
yeah, well, let's
yell about
it. My mom is on. She commented, "If you let it go, you say it's okay." Yeah, and I totally agree. If you don't say something, if you don't defend the people that can't defend themselves, you're in a sense, advocating for it. So,
right.
But let's get right into it, right? Let's talk about it, because it's definitely a touchy subject with a lot of people, because obviously we get pinned as the lazy generation, which we are not in any form or stretch. I mean, there's always some, we'll call them bad apples, right? But that spoil the bunch. But obviously there are certain things that we value compared to other generations, before us, generations that are going to come after us in the workplace. I mean, because we are right now the largest, or we will be one of the largest populations in the workforce. And so a lot of these things, these companies are going to have to figure out what to do. And so what are some of the things that you value or you see? And we'll kind of start there.
Yeah, definitely. I think something this is a while ago, we were talking about this, and I think that there was a stat of 86 million millennials this year in 2020 in the workplace. So it was like 40%. I had jotted some things down that I'm looking at, but obviously we're a huge generation in the workplace, and I'm glad that we're going to definitely talk about how that translates into the good things that we have too, not just the bad raps too.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that I want to talk about, right? It's probably big for me. It's probably on my top, is valued, right? Is being valued in the workplace. And I think it can get misconstrued that if you want to be valued, right? That could be like you have a softness, right? Or you have like a weakness, like you need to be validated, right? But I don't believe that's the case. I feel like when I was working at other places, right? Before I started my entrepreneurial journey, right? Like we did, one of the big things that I struggled with companies was being valued, right? Being felt like I was part of the team, that my ideas were valued, right? That I was bringing value to the team. And I think that's a big thing that companies are going to have to start realizing, is that, yes, you hired this employee, you pay this employee to do a certain job, but if you want to keep good employees, because the bad ones always stay, right? The good ones always leave. So,
because they're not feeling appreciated or valued a lot of times, and it might be monetarily, it might be money wise too, if they're being underpaid, the value of their pay too.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. If you think about it, I think for our generation too, I don't think money is a driving force. Like it obviously we need money to pay bills and stuff like that, but I feel like money's not the biggest driving force. I think and we're going to get into a lot of them, but with the whole value premise, just having loyalty, right? And that's a big thing, that we're considered a lot of times that we're job jumpers, right? You look at our resumes, we've been here 1 year, here 2 years, here 3 years, and the old way, because I used to look at resumes, right? The old way was like, you see somebody jumping around that many times, you're like, well, what's going on here? Why can't he?
Right. What's wrong? Right.
What's wrong with Billy? Right.
Right.
And I think it comes down to the value that you're given. And if you're not, why should I be loyal to a company? Here's a great question, right? Why should I be loyal to a company if a company at the end of the day is not loyal to me?
It's just like a relationship. I mean, as I was looking and thinking about feeling appreciated, and we say people who are appreciated are going to always do more than they have to, or whatever, just because they feel that way. But and with the money thing, I think I meant more like if they're underpaid paid, like just as far as they're overwork, they're working harder and more. Because I've been in situations where I was doing things and I wasn't valued for those services or, for that. But yeah, I think that while, it's kind of twofold. While we get this bad rap of, oh, we jump from here to here, we're used to seeing something maybe with technology or something, there's more jobs, there's more opportunities. But I think we're going to talk a lot about that. How do you keep millennials from leaving? And that's a great thing. But when it comes to the loyalty, I think if you are appreciated and valued, and you're likely to stay if those things are there. I think it's just with any type of relationship and partnership too, that, instead of going and looking for something else, if you have that and you're getting that feeling of, that you're valued and compensated and, all those things, then sure, I think staying there, a lot of people will do that our age,
Yeah. I mean, when people say, millennials are not loyal, right? I disagree. I believe we're completely loyal. It's loyalty, respect goes both ways. And I think, maybe there's a thought process out there. It might have been from generations past or whatnot, but, I remember, like, especially in the times that we're in, and like in the crash of '08 and stuff like that, I remember people saying, well, you're lucky to be here, right? You're lucky to have a job. You're lucky to be
right.
Paycheck. And it's like, yes, I am very fortunate, right, that we have that ability. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, we're there for a lot more reasons than just pay, right? I mean, because if you think about it, when you did work for somewhere, right? When you used to work for the company that you used to work for, I lost track of the name of it. But I mean, how many hours a day would you spend working there, right? How many days were you there? You were there more than, you spent time with your family, your friends, doing things that you love. And so if you're going to spend that much time doing something, like, you have to like it, you have to, all these things that we're about to talk about have to be there if you're going to be willing to give up that much time. I think the value of our time is a big thing that millennials kind of put value on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it comes to expectations and moving on when those aren't met. I think that I think when you said you were about, we're lucky to have a job and all the stuff that we have gone through, right after college, and we experienced some of that. But I think that there's even people who are spending time getting extra education or extra training or paying their own money to do things to better themselves for their job too. So, that people are trying to get other skills to invest in, their job too.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And guys, if you're watching this, a couple people are watching this right now. So put down in the comment section. I want to know what some of the things that you need at your job or your career that keep you there, right? Something that you look for in a job, right? But great segue. Expectations about goals, expectations about the job, right? I think when it's really tough to be somewhere where your goals don't align with what the company that you're working for, right? And I think I think when you come out of college, you're just so excited to have a job that you're just like, I'll take anywhere, right? But as you get older, right, and I see, and this is what I remember seeing when I was hiring people, is looking at their resumes, and right out of college, they were at a place for a couple years, like 5 years, right? And they got older, and then they figured out, this is not where I want to be. And then that's when the job jumping kind of started, right? Their goals did not align with where they wanted to be and where the company was going.
Right. Well, and I think that it's also goals that are set as the employee and your boss and your department or your team. And I think that I've been in situations, I had a part-time job. I had a full-time job when I was out of college, and I've worked with different companies and clients and things that I'm a part of a team still. But I think it's also determining what your job and your role, the expectations of you, and creating those goals and deadlines. I don't do well with chaos and havoc and unorganized when I'm working with people, whether it's a client or in a work setting that are unorganized, or that are it's all over the place, and you don't have timelines and agendas. And I'm not trying to be super anal and crazy with that, but there's something to be said for me where you're not just thrown out. I am a go-getter, I'm a self-starter, but there's sometimes that you actually need to be given some type of information and direction. And I think that that's where sometimes people feel that it obviously it comes down from leadership. But I think that if you're getting signals in a sense that it's not, I don't want to use organized, I want to say it's like that they're serious, that they're on schedule, on things that they're focused on, I think that you start to feel that way too. But you get that vibe when people aren't giving you those expectations. It's kind of a back and forth. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but I just think that I like to know what I'm supposed to do. Whether I have to create the how-to myself, but I like to know that there's certain expectations and what I'm supposed to be doing and my goals to get there.
Yeah. And that kind of segues into one that I like, but one thing I want to mention is that the best place and it kind of ties in with what you're saying, like having goals, having like set expectations, right? And the best boss I ever worked for, when I was working in a hotel, when I first got out of college, he was our director of food and beverage, and he was great in a sense because he, corporate would give him a bunch of goals, right? And the problem with that is when they come from such a high level that there's a disconnect between what corporate wants and what the line level employees need, right? And so one of the things that he would do is he would have all these goals, right? And he would write them out on a big chalkboard, and he would bring all the staff in, and he said, these are the goals that we're supposed to accomplish. You guys are the team. You guys are doing the things, right, that you need to do. What do you want to accomplish, right? What are the things that you want to make sure that we're a successful department? What are some of the things that you guys think? And he got great buy-in because now everybody's like, hey, like, this is my goal. It's not a goal that was set down from corporate and I have to accomplish it or else I'm fired, right? It was, hey, like, this is the goal to be this profit level, right? But in the same token, what are some steps that we can do to accomplish this goal that are our goals, right? And so, we had one of the best, banquet staffs in the state at that time, and it was just really empowering to know. And that goes back to value, right? Expectations, and being part of the process. I think, because when it's your goal, right, you have some, I guess, some personality in it, right? It's yours. And so you're going to go after it a little bit more, right?
Right. Yeah. You take ownership of it. I mean, I think
that's the word I was
definitely. And I think it's, and when you say that too, I mean, there's definitely a level of, hey, you have this corporate and it's coming down here, but each place is different. Each group is different. Each team is different. So I think that catering those to each employee or team or location is great too, not just kind of individualizing things.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that goes into like what we were just talking about. Like, I think, great leadership, right?
Yeah.
We want good leaders because we want direction, right? I think good leaders breed good leaders, right? Bad leaders breed bad leaders, right? And so
definitely.
If you want good leadership, to develop, you have to have good communication, I think, is huge, right? For millennials, like
it's huge.
want communication.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think that checking in with your boss, with your, owner, manager, team kind of thing, I think that more people will say that they would, I don't want to say work harder. I think like be more engaged, I feel, when they know that that they're meeting, and maybe it's not weekly, but well, I think weekly would be good just to kind of check in. But I think that we do want to be able to do things on our own and not have to be micromanaged, obviously. But I think that there's something to be said about showing what you are doing, checking in, and having that that communication, like you said, that the leaders and the leadership and your managers and all that are also invested in what you're doing, that they care, that they want you to be successful and they want to be a part of it and they want to know. I think that if they don't care, and there's a disconnect, like you said too, that I've been in situations where I've wanted to check in with a boss, or say, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm at. I had some questions about certain things, and I either got pushed off onto somebody else, or it wasn't a big deal. And I feel that, in my role, I want them to know what I'm doing. And I feel that if they're not interested, it kind of puts me feeling a little bit, I don't know, not down, but I think that there's something to be said about having that communication.
Yeah, I think a good leader too is present. I remember for me, like, you ever had that feeling like you're walking through, right, and you see your boss, like the big boss, and you get really nervous, right? And you're like, oh, am I going to do something wrong? And he's going to yell at me, or she's going to yell at me. But when a good leader is present and you see that leader, you're like, oh, hey, what's going on, Jimmy? How are you doing today? Right? It's like he or she is there, and they're a normal presence, right? You don't have to feel anxious around them. You don't have to feel like pins and needles. And
nobody wants to walk on eggshells, for sure, and have that fear, because I've had the same thing too. You're afraid to, even if it was you're late, or you're sick, or you're even when you want. I mean, I don't know that we'll get into leaving jobs, but I mean, obviously, you have this. A lot of people have that fear of the boss. And I think it's because of the relationship that might not be there, obviously. And I think that but we've said this before, that things come down from leadership. And I think that there's been problems on the employee level. There's been issues, whether it's, not necessarily drama, or negativity, but if that's being allowed and that's coming down from, whether it's the manager or the owner, or that's how they are, clearly that's going to be some type of the environment, I would think. It's allowed, and it's almost coming down from that. So I think having a good leader and not having those things there, but I definitely I want to have that relationship where you have that open communication. That I just work better that way than.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess it's fair to say that relationship with your with your boss or your supervisor or your director or whatever is paramount. And I was just thinking while you were talking, you're talking about like leadership kind of reflects what's going on, right? And there's one of my favorite movies, right? Not Friday Night Lights. What is it called? Remember the Titans.
Yeah, and I love that. It's one of my favorite movies.
There's a very point when the two main characters are kind of still at each other, right? And one of the characters says to the other guy, hey, attitude reflects leadership. And it's like, it's so on point, right? Whatever the leader's doing, right, in business or whatever, right, however they are, that's going to be shown in what their team does.
Right. And the business itself, I think it's the success of the whole company. You've seen where there's it comes down from the leadership, but it affects the employees, it affects the staff, it's going to affect the customers, it's going to affect the whole environment, it's all affected, obviously. But I think that there's something to be said too. Maybe people are wondering, a little bit about their environment or their jobs, or maybe they're not happy in places. Well, maybe it's that relationship with the boss, or maybe it is, that they're trying to figure this out and it's coming down, and we want to have somebody that we can go to communicate, but that we can look up to, and that we can say, hey, I aspire to be like this person, and it's not always there, unfortunately. But
no, it's not. I mean, I remember a valuable lesson I learned from one of that same boss that I was telling you about that did all that stuff. And he said, if you want to go to the next level, whatever that is, you need to have the mindset of the person in front of you, right? And if that person's not a great leader, right, that's going to be a good situation for you.
Yeah, and a really good example too that I want to say is that I respect so much of. I was working part-time for C&J Catering, and the owner, Jamie, she did something and said something one time that I'll never forget. And these weddings that are 100, 200, I don't know how many people, and you've got 20 staff, and you're setting up, you're clearing plates, you're cooking, you're doing all this stuff. And she is there lifting out this big trash can, like those black barrel trash cans. And she's taking this trash out, and she said, everybody, and I don't know, she's taking this trash out, and she was then doing something where cleaning the dishes, doing all this stuff. And she said to everybody that night, I will never ask of you anything that I won't do myself.
Yep.
And I like I said, I just had so much more respect for her. But as a leader, and just to say, there's so many people out there that would be like, hey, you, Melissa, you wash the dishes, or hey, you take out the trash. And the fact that she was doing it herself, obviously, I think how partially she started her company. I mean, you had to do a lot of you had to work, do all of those things. But to prove that not one job is less than another, and that we all have to do it. If the owner is doing those things, what's that show? What's the show with the guy that goes undercover boss?
Yeah.
That they have to do that. And there's companies, I want to say it was Starbucks, but anyone in a managerial position has to go through the training and the job of the, I don't know how to use the word, but every employee, they have to kind of go through every job level. And I think that that's a great leadership example of what she said. If you, I just love that.
Yeah, no, I was the exact same way, because it's kind of odd. I was a banquet manager. We did weddings and stuff like that. And I would tell my staff that in stand up, like we'd be talking about the event before it was going to happen. Right. And I would be like, there's nothing that I'm going to ask you to do that I haven't done myself. And, I wouldn't do it all the time, right? Because then they expect you to, be there doing all their work for them. But the same token, I would get out there every once in a while and show them how to do it, right? And I remember this one example, and this is off topic, but it's fine. But I remember this. I hired this young kid, right? And he had done a couple events with me, and he was like, I don't ever see. He comes up to me in the middle of the event and says, I never see you doing anything. I said, oh, really? I said, is this a challenge? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, I'll serve all 4 of these tables by myself. You serve all 4 of those tables by yourself, and see who gets done first, right? Of course, I got done way quicker than he could ever do it. And I just proved it. I just went up to him and I said, listen, I said, I'm never going to do something. I'm never going to ask you to do something that I can't do myself or wouldn't do myself.
Or step in if needed.
Or step in if needed. Like, I'm always here for you. I'm always having your back. Like, if you have something that you need, come to me, right? And I think that goes back to communication, is like, you want that boss that you can go to no matter what the situation is. You could have completely messed up the worst, ever, right? But being able to go to them and say, hey, I messed up, right? And know that you're not going to be like, I don't want to say no judgment, but obviously they'll be mad, right? But they'll be constructive about it. I think that's the big thing, is like we want to know that it's not okay to fail necessarily. I don't want to say it's okay to fail, but if we do fail, it's not like the end of the world, right?
Well, and that's how we grow. And I think that going through struggles and stuff, but I think it's being able to go to that person, and like I said, not having that fear, and but yeah, I think that there's something to be said about I'm trying to say that you can go to them, like you said, and it might not just be for if something went wrong, but even for help, and to say, hey, I need help on this, or I need struggling with this too. Yeah,
open communication. I think that this kind of segues into how important culture is at a workplace, right? Or for a company that you work for. I think culture. You had sent me an article, and I was reading a little bit about it, and we can definitely pop up that article after live. We'll put it in the comments so you guys can read it. But they talked about people, if there's a culture somewhere else that's more in line with what a millennial wants, they'll actually take a pay cut to go there.
Right.
If they have to, right? Now, if they don't have to, they won't. But obviously, if it's, and I can say the same thing, right? Because the reason I got out of my career was the culture. I remember sitting at work, so stressed out that to the point where I was like almost crying. And I was like, this is going to kill me, right? And I literally went and found the first job that was like lined with my culture, and I took a pay cut to go there. But what did I gain in not being stressed out or something along those lines, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think that there's different company cultures that value different things. Collaborating, which millennials love, and innovation, and kind of investing in our futures and our development and stuff like that. But the employee experience really is what I think you're talking about, and I think that with a company who conveys that culture, and that they obviously have to embody it and they have to live by it. But I've talked about this in my business too, is that people want to see behind the scenes. Okay, people want to know what the company is about, what on the website, on the social media, on the advertising. They want to relate, they want to feel, they want to be able to know that they can connect. And I think that that's what the employees obviously want to know, that there's something behind the company that they're working for, that they're also, we've talked about how millennials love to do good and make an impact. And that's something else that companies, it's part of the culture, but it's not just, what were you saying, that Google isn't just a search engine, that they're a company that wants to organize the world's information and make it accessible for everybody. It's not just, there's a mission behind it. And I think that there's putting that out there in all those facets, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would be interested to know this. Like, have companies always had mission statements, or is it just because of us millennials, right? They're like, because
I think it is newer.
Yeah, it's like everywhere you go now, a company has a vision or a mission statement or something along those lines to let everybody know what they're kind of about, right?
But what I think is, I've always seen that with nonprofits, and I've worked a lot with nonprofits and charity events that I've done, invitations and stationery for, and you always see that because they have to. I mean, they have to have that mission. It's like required as like an LLC and operating agreement and all that.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. I think that maybe there's something to be said about what that mission and that vision of what a nonprofit is explaining, because they aren't for profit and they're trying to, raise awareness and funds and all that. And they have to give that. But we're looking at so much that people want to make an impact and do good. And maybe that's meshing somehow, like you said. I don't think it was always there. Maybe we're just seeing it more too. But I think that because a lot of millennials, I don't just want to work for a company that's just making a bunch of money, or they're just selling a bunch of products. They want something else.
Yeah. I mean, but if you look, it's not just in working in a career, it's everything that millennials are buying. Like there's a purpose there. Like I love the show Shark Tank, right? I love it. Great show. Me and the wife always are watching it, right? Even if it's a rerun, we'll watch it. But whenever they get like a millennial business on there, the sharks always make fun of them because they're like, oh, it's got to have some purpose. It's got to have some cause. It's got to be, yes, because that evokes emotion, right? And when you can tap into emotion, right, you get a response that's either loyal or disloyal, right? Either you're going to, oh, I really hate that, I'm moving away from that. Or I really love this, I'm moving closer to it. And I think the mission statement, whatever, like, I've seen mission statements before for companies where it looked like they spent 5 minutes doing it. But then when you see the companies that are really, truly successful, like a Google, right? That mission statement evokes an emotion in people that want to work there. They're like, hey, that seems like a great cause. Like, I love everything that they do, right? Like Tom's, right? You buy a pair of shoes, they give out a pair of shoes, right? It evokes an emotion.
And like you said, I think it goes back to brand value. And speaking a little bit about my business and example, just because I think this relates. And when you said that about it's not just this, I started showing on my Facebook page just a logo that I did. And I explained, this isn't just a logo. This is an idea to be able to create more business for a restaurant at a time that they're not having any business. And we created this unique concept. And I basically explained behind it. And I think that it is the emotion. It is the, it's not just design. There's a lot more behind it. And I think that that's what people want to know these days too. And they want it to be out there that you're doing, that there's this reason for, I don't want to say for being, but what is the company's core values, and putting that out there. I think we see that a lot more.
Well, I mean, I think as humans, right, we all want to know why we're here, right? Why we're on this planet, why are we breathing? And we put that same question, especially as millennials, I believe we put that question to every aspect of our lives. Why am I doing this, right? Why am I working here? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Are we making an impact? I think we ask why a lot more than maybe the generations before us. Whereas, it might have been like, no, you have this job, you're lucky to have it, right? Make money for the company and move on with your life. Whereas we're like, hey, that's great. We do want to make money, but we also want to know why we're making money, right? What are we doing? And that was a major driving force in why I chose to kind of change career paths. Was I didn't feel like at working in hotels I was making an impact. Like, selling somebody a room so they could stay the night wasn't a great impact in my pocket. So I needed to fill that, I guess, void, right, of not having an impact.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, but, another thing that, when we were talking about, right, is I think innovation you had mentioned, right? I think that's an important topic. I think millennials are kind of that weird generation where we remember. I was talking to Brandon, one of our fans who comments regularly on here, and we were actually talking about it. We were probably the first, like the generations that are in school now have like actual like computers and iPads in their class. I remember being in the 5th and 6th grade, and the first time really computers were in the classroom, right? And we actually had to take typing classes. I don't know if you had to take a typing class.
Yeah.
But I think we're one of those weird generations that does value technology and does value innovation, but we also value the humanness of interaction. I think that's kind of an interesting topic. It's just like how those two worlds meld, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we grew up, like you said, I mean, I remember the old Macs where we were playing Oregon Trail. I think I was in second grade. I don't know, third grade. I'm not sure. But, we've seen also the evolution, I think, of technology and computers, and we've been a part of that, and we've grown with that. And I think that we also like to work with new technologies and, like you said, the innovation. I mean, there's obviously instant messenger, AIM, but there's things in different systems, software systems that you use that you can talk back and forth to people at their desks. So I think Microsoft Teams, I feel like, has that. I don't use Microsoft, but I know that there's people that do that, where they can real-time message each other. And there's things like that integrated through the phone systems and out, different, like I said, intranets at different offices. But I think that there's so many ways that we could be more efficient and quicker and do things based on the fact that we do love technology, obviously. So I think that there's ways that employers can get more out of us, and I think make things easier for us, but easier for everybody, in a sense, when it comes to different ways to up that technology for our workplace.
That's such an interesting thought. Like, if you think about it, efficiency, right? And I know we've talked about this before, where if I feel like I can get my job done in 4 hours, right, and be super efficient and leave if I want to, what's the purpose of staying the extra 4 hours to sit around and do nothing, right? Like,
yeah,
I think the ability, like maybe the generations before us, our parents and stuff like that, they give us a bad rap for being lazy, but really maybe it's a sense of, hey, we've learned how to be super efficient, right? Because we can use technology to get done quicker. I think that also plays into why we want flexibility in our schedules. Maybe it's working remotely. Maybe it's, working a shorter work week. I don't know what that looks like for everybody, but I mean, technology has definitely, like you said, a key aspect of being efficient.
Right. And I think that there's so much stuff, if we don't know what it is, how to do it, we go to the internet. There's a lot of people that are in older generations that still aren't very tech savvy, and they don't know certain things that we do. And I think that we use it to our advantage. I think just because we have had that love-hate relationship with technology, right? Yeah. But I think that it goes back 100%. I think we know, especially during COVID, we've seen so much with any generation, obviously, that there's people that are working from home and the opportunities that are there that might not have been there before. But as far as, you made a good point about flexibility and working remotely, but I think that a lot of millennials too are interested in making their own hours, in a sense. And I don't necessarily mean come and go and hey, I'm going to work, I'm not going to work. It's just more or less creating their own schedules with timetables and what they're doing. I think that it's also because we know when we're more efficient with things. We talked about people working at better times, but I think that we know how much we can get done in certain hours as well. For myself, I know I can get a lot done. I'm a huge multitasker, and I really have to be doing a lot, or something's wrong. So I do a lot of stuff at the same time, but I know I can get a lot more done than most people. But then that goes back to equality of pay. I said this a while ago when I had first gotten out of college. I was doing 20 jobs when somebody was doing 10, and here we are getting paid the same amount. But I think that, could I have just up and left after I got that done? I think I would have appreciated that. It would have been a better work environment for me, not sitting there either doing more work than the person next to me, or feeling like I had to slow down, or I think back then that would have been, I would have enjoyed the job more, and I wouldn't have been so frustrated in that position.
Yeah. Just the ability to, flexibility is a big kind of sticking point for a lot of us, right? That we want the ability to not only have flexibility in our schedule, but, I think a big thing is flexibility in career. We want options, maybe it's not the path that we're always on. And we want to be able to deviate. And sometimes those career paths don't allow us to do that. And I think that goes back to just a lot of flexibility in just not just your time, but just in everything that you do.
Right. Well, and I think we've learning too, especially now, but I think so many people before COVID, that we've learned that a lot of us don't have to be in the office physically every day to get our jobs done. And I think that there are opportunities to do work outside, but here's a good point. How about when we're expected to work after hours? So it's funny that there's a lot of employers that won't let you work from home, but then you're expected to answer emails on the weekend, or, have these calls or things that you have to do nights and weekends too, that I think that it's a trade-off. I think you can't be expected to do things over the weekends, but then then not told that you can't work from home, because you're technically working from home when you're doing those things too after hours that are expected. So,
I think, man, that's a great point. If you think about it, like, maybe it's the work-life balance, but in a different sense of where it's separation of work, right? Like, because like with technology, right, it's a double-edged sword that now you're always available, because you're all like your phone, right? Your phone, you have email, you have text messages, they could call you. And it's not like the old days where you had a phone at home, right? And that was the only way they could get a hold of you. And if you didn't answer, oh, well, right? If you weren't home. For the generation before us, we actually used to have, after us, we actually used to have phones in the home that connected to the wall. So just so you know, it actually did exist. But having separation of work, right? You do have, like, I think that's a big thing for us too, is that we want to unplug and go do the things that we love to do. Maybe for me, it's like, I love working out. I love spending time with my wife, going out in nature and stuff like that. And if I always feel like I'm always on call, right? For us, like, Saturdays are usually like disconnection day, where I'm not doing anything, unless it's a complete meltdown of what's going on, right? There's always situations where you'll answer, but try to separate out from that aspect of your life, right? Because you can't wear both hats at the same time. I can't be the husband and the financial advisor at the same time. Like, I can't wear the same hat. And that's not fair to the people that you're around, right? Giving all the value that they need.
Yeah. And I think that some of these expectations can be set at the beginning. I think there's a lot of questions and things that people can ask when they first start a job. I think that sometimes things change throughout the career and change through that. But I think it's also goes back to that communication, where I think that employees, and I think us millennials, need to be vocal about what works and what doesn't, and what is too much and what's all those things. And I think also the employer, I think, needs to be open to that, and they need to be able to see that. And I think there are sometimes that the expectations are that we're going to go that extra mile. We're going to, work harder, and we're going to, which we do. A lot of us do, and we're happy to. I think that it just goes along with that, being appreciated and valued, and having that, getting fulfilled in the needs that you want, that make it a great combination. I think because there's a lot of companies, startups, and I think places that really ask a lot of the employees these days. And even just in my position with clients, I have a lot of clients that think that I'm working only for them. And I think that it can translate into the workplace too, but I think there's definitely give and take when it comes to that work-life balance, but the employer has to understand that too. It's not just the employee and us setting those boundaries and saying, hey, we need to do that in our personal life, and we need to do a better job. We need to convey that to the employer, and I think that the employer needs to, it all kind of has to all has to come together in a sense. But there's definitely things that are great perks. I think if you've got more vacation time, I think if there's some employees that do lunches, they do some type of a training, they do some type of an after hours. Hey, they provide dinner, they provide lunch. Make it worthwhile too for us that we might be going above and beyond, but what are we getting too? Again, being okay to leave if there's a family commitment, not saying, no, you can't go or you're going to be fired. So there's flexibility in that as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, one thing that you brought up was that I remember seeing something in the article about is the, doing stuff after hours, right? And doing stuff outside of work, in the sense of, in the article, they said, millennials are, out of any generation, are more willing to spend time after work honing their craft of what they do at work, whether it's going on a weekend trip to go to some seminar, right? Or learn something on the internet. And I think that plays back into technology, but going back to technology, because a thought that ran through my head is that it is a double-edged sword, right? And being able to, I think as time will go on, it's prevalent now that we're such a world that needs information now, right? We need the answer now, and technology has sped that up even more, right? Where, if somebody has a question, they can shoot you a message on WhatsApp or shoot you a quick email. And that was always my problem, was just trying to figure out the way, especially, being married and stuff like that, trying to separate work from life was always a big thing for me, because I never wanted those two worlds to meet. They shouldn't have to meet, right? You're not a different person when you're outside of work. I feel like I'm the same person in the office that I am outside, but I have different experiences outside of work.
Yeah, and I think I saw something too, that this work-life balance, it was being told, is now this work-life integration. So maybe that's what I was trying to say about this whole mesh of there's like a new term now. Instead of balance, it's integration, because I think it takes everyone that's involved to integrate that, coming down from leadership, coming down from the employer. So all over.
That's interesting. I was listening to somebody, I can't remember his name, but he mentioned the fact that life is never balanced, right? You're always going to be off balance. And so I think that's a better way to say it, is integration, because like I said, your personal life and your work life are never going to be balanced. Something is always going on in one or the other. And so that's interesting that you said that, because that's the first thought that ran through my head, was that and life isn't balanced. We're always kind of, unbalanced, if you will.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's you're leaning this way, and sometimes you're doing more of this, and it's probably never going to be perfect and that split. But I think doing what you can to, like we said, integrate. I think integration is a great thing, because everyone plays a part in that. It's not just the employer. It's not just the significant other, and you have to do it in so many different aspects. And the employer, I think, everyone working together on that will definitely be more beneficial for everyone involved too.
And to go back to that, right? Because I think work-life balance or integration, whatever term you want to use, but I think that's another reason why us as millennials get a bad rap, is that they're like, well, they don't want to work. No, that's not the case. Like, we do want to work. we love to work. We want to make money. We want to have an impact on our community, but we also want to have a life. Like, we understand having a life outside of work.
Right. And I think that also making the experience enjoyable, making it educational, making it challenging, there's a lot of things that we want it to be an overall good experience, and that culture of what the company is all about. And I think that there's tiny little things that we've talked about today that employers can be doing to make millennials feel a little bit more valued, appreciated, and in turn work harder, work smarter, work more efficient. And it's a win-win for everyone. I think it's just like we said, it's just like with relationships, it's give and take, and you have to give to get.
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect way to end this, right? It's there are, just like any generation before us, that will be after us, people in general, right? You're not going to do, I think that's another thing employers need to realize, is that they're not going to be perfect. But as long as the employee sees that you're trying, right, and you're trying to make things to make the environment better, to make
progress better, sure, progress. Yeah,
we'll be willing to work with you, right? But if you're not willing to work with us, right, as employees, that's where you get people to jump ship. That's where you see massive turnover, because if there's no bend, if it's not a two-way street,
right,
why am I here, right? Why am I working for you? At the end, you don't have my back. And I think that's a big thing, like you said, just to kind of summarize it all, is, like you said, making sure that those things are in place.
And then you have our loyalty.
Yeah, definitely. So, but anyways, is it that time?
Oh, it's me.
Okay.
It's me.
Is it you? Yes, because I thought I was last week. So guys, for those that are watching live, it's that time of the show where we do the Millennial Meme of the Week. So obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, right, on one of the other channels, you're going to have to come check us out on Facebook. So kind of a little.
We do try to say what it is, but I thought this was a great example. I've seen this actually a couple times, and I died laughing. So I thought for the workplace.
Proof you're in the hospital.
When your boss asks for proof you're in the hospital, those who can't see it, dude has his earbuds. Actually, actually they're not earbuds. This is new generation. These are iPhone earphones, whatever they're called, I forget. In his nose, taped to his hand like an IV, and I just thought it was hilarious. I see the IV a lot with my sister, and this got me dying, because he's trying to get out of work with this, and I thought it was hilarious. So.
That is
good fitting. Nobody try this. We're not encouraging or condoning trying this with your bosses, though. It's
supposed to be funny. But yeah, I've seen that one a couple times before, and when you popped it up, I just little chuckle. Yeah, it's definitely a good one. So, but anyways, guys, that's it for today, right? That's it for until next week, right? And next week, we don't have a topic yet, do we? Maybe.
No, I don't think so. I think we're gonna have to surprise everybody.
You know what?
Get excited.
You know what? You know what's happening next Friday? I just remembered this.
What?
It's the 14th, correct? Right? Yeah. So that would be the first time that me and Mel actually meet in person.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! We've never met in person before.
How crazy is that?
Holy Hannah! And we're gonna be live in person. Just social distance,
Social distance live. That'll be a first, right? That'll be the first.
Holy Hannah!
Facebook Live. So breaking news, guys. We're going to be in the same area at the same time. It's going to be be an event. But we won't tell you what the event is. We'll leave that for later this week. So you have to show up.
Suspense.
Yes.
Yeah, and you have to follow up on our pages to get the scoop.
Yeah, get the deets, right? You have to do it. So, but yeah, we'll leave that to the imagination. But guys, hopefully you had a good time yelling with us today. Hopefully, like we said in the beginning, if you are a millennial, right, and you're struggling at work, maybe some of these things you can take back to your boss and say, hey, I need some of these things, right? And then if you're an employer of millennials, maybe it's some things that you see that you could change, right, to get more production or to just have that employee stick around for a little bit longer. So, but if you guys next week, like I said, 12 o'clock Friday, check us out. If you haven't turned on your notifications, just hit the follow button. You'll get a notification to let you know that we're going live, right? Or we've posted something. Maybe it's something that you need to check out. But before we get out of here, Mel, leave us with some inspiring words or just any last thoughts.
Yeah, I think just like with a lot of things that are going on right now in our country, in America, and COVID, we're in this together. And I think that we should take that to the workplace and realize that obviously with our teams, our employees, our bosses, we're in this to be successful all together. And I think these are some great examples to come together and make things a lot more smooth and enjoyable for everyone. So we're in this together.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you. Like I said, check us out next week, and we'll be seeing you real soon. So have a good one.
Bye, guys.